well-being and wellness are two different things. I'm trying to unpick that for people, because well-being is one subjective satisfaction in their life. You don't have to be happy to have a sense of well-being. Happiness is a temporary emotion like anger and sadness. You can have a sense of eudaimonia, which is a life filled with purpose. It's working towards something. It's often the people who work the hardest, they're not always smiling or happy, that have the greatest meaning and feeling in life. He who has a why can deal with any how. That's what we should be focusing on.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Ryan Hopkins is a Chief Impact Officer at Jack, where he is helping to build an epic mental health platform with leading voices from around the world. He is trusted by big names such as the likes of Deloitte and Bupa to run their wellbeing programs. He is a 2-time 10x speaker, and his book, The 52 Weeks of Wellbeing, has topped many of the bestsellers charts. I present to you this week's guest, Ryan Hopkins. So welcome Ryan Hopkins to No Bullshit Talks today.
And now we're into it. What a start. Let's go.
I'm introducing you straight away. I thought I'd get cracking. Do you want to tell people who you are, what you do, for those who don't know you?
Well, let's start with one thing. So a TEDx speaker soon to be twice, which we've done together, which is very exciting. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Jack, which is the world's coolest mental health platform and title, but I can explain more about that in a minute. Do lots of talks. Previously set up and led Deloitte's external facing wellbeing business, written a best-selling book, engaged almost 17 million people now in the betterment of wellbeing. We started a second one, just super passionate about all of it, helping people not end up where I did, or if they do, to know that they're not alone, because life's fucking hard.
It is. And actually,
I don't know if I can swear.
I mean, everyone always asks this, and I'm like, well, the title of the podcast
I thought it'd be okay. I know like bullshit's okay, but the F word's like a level.
Yeah, I know. And people always ask me that, because they're like, oh, you like to swear. And I'm like, is bullshit that much of a swear word? And I'm
that's
like,
allowed,
I feel like that's just an everyday
It's
word.
like a watered down, like, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, glad this is where the talk starts.
It's not being cut out either. I don't even edit this stuff out. I just leave it all in, because like how raw it is. These are the real conversations that people need to talk about. And also, it's a good question, because people ask that question all the time. And I'm like, my whole thing, as you know, the TEDx theme is be true to who you are. Like, if you naturally swear as who you are, don't hold back, because that's not really who you are then. And I just think that that's an expression of what you do. I don't like C-bombs. I find that word really disgusting. You don't need to say it most of the time. And I say most of the time, there are exceptions in the world. But, you know, if you like to, drop the F word every so often, that's just...
Yeah, just keep it spicy.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're doing it every 2 seconds, I'd be like, Ryan, calm down a bit.
Yeah.
But you...
All right, noted. You set the tone.
The whole point is it's no bullshit talks. I want people to open up, be really raw. There's nothing we can't talk about. But if you look at my stuff, and this is what I talk about, I'm very real and very open, very honest, but I don't try to offend people. Like, I don't ever do that. Like, I'm never, personally trying to victimize someone. I'm never like trying to seek someone out and be like, right, let's try and ruin their reputation. Yeah. It's more like I'm looking for justice. I'm looking to speak out and fight for equality and like fight for what's right. So, if sometimes the emotion carries you and you're just like, then, just bring it out. Yeah. But so, Ryan, I would say that you are now considered probably one of the world's leaders of wellbeing. Like, you one of the most authoritative figures. Like you said, TEDx talks, best-selling authors. You were like head of the wellbeing at Deloitte and now leading the way at Jack, and you're working with giants, Bupa and stuff like that. That's huge. But it wasn't like a normal path, I feel like. It just kind of all
definitely well, from the first talk.
Exactly. And that's why I'm like, wow. And I want to talk about it, because people who listen to this podcast are looking for inspiration. They're looking for drive. And, I feel like entrepreneurship is, as you said, life is tough. Entrepreneurship is so murky. And it's, people think there's this really clear, easy path to success. And everyone's buying a course, they're following a blueprint, and they're like doing these cheat sheets or whatever. They think that you just follow the rules and you suddenly become successful. And it never works out that way. So I'd love to just delve into a little bit about how you became one of the leading voices. You're also LinkedIn top voice of wellbeing as well, just to add to that. You are one of the world's leading voices on wellbeing. That's huge. That's nuts. Like, you think about it.
Yeah.
How on earth did you get there?
Well, there's about a 0% chance that was ever going to happen. So it's...
Well, it's got to be at least 0.1 because you've got here.
It's infinitesimally small. Like, to even be here now is fortunate, because in certain moments, you know, it's like, I was trained to be an electrician when I was young, when I was 18. So I finished school with no qualifications. I found out past 3 weeks that I was diagnosed with autism, which has been interesting, as I told you.
Mm-hmm.
It's been an interesting journey. So that makes a lot of sense why things were so difficult when I was young. Didn't get any qualifications in school, difficult family situation, was working young through GCSEs, had to help my mum and cooking with my brothers and stuff. So it wasn't like an ideal scenario to study. Was starting to train to be an electrician, because that's what you do. You've got no qualifications, you're a young bloke, you think, all right, I'm getting on the tools, because that's what everyone around you does. What your mates do, what my dad does, what my brother does. Like, it's cool. And you be a happy life, you earn some good money, you finish at 4 o'clock, you don't have to deal with like messages from people. And that's a nice existence, right? Kind of wish I was doing it now. But
I totally get it. Like, you know, you can switch off and that's 100%. It. Like, that's,
there's no like, well, you have to worry about the right to disconnect if you're a carpenter.
Yeah.
That's their line. Like,
yeah. It's actually quite nice to think about it. So down tools, literally down tools.
Down tools.
Down tools.
That's where the expression. That's where the expression comes.
Exactly. Down tools at 4 p.m. and then hit the pub. Yes, in the morning.
Happy days. So like, that was the plan. And I was doing my apprenticeship and stuff like that, and then had an accident playing rugby, broke my ankle and my leg, so it's like facing the wrong way. You know, one of those like bad breaks, you got to click to see the picture on Instagram and it's like facing the wrong way. Didn't walk for about a year. I spiraled into really deep depression, put on loads of weight, was in debt, no qualifications, no future, lost that job, and I saw you lost every sense of who I was. Couldn't play rugby, couldn't be a sparky, I was just nothing. End up in a place where I wanted to take my life and make plans. If mum wasn't around, then I wouldn't have come through that.
Yes.
And that obviously was quite difficult, goes without saying. I tell the story so much, I tell it without emotion, but it's otherwise if I really sit back in it, then I was go,
yeah, you relive it. That's
exactly. And then started walking again, got a job in Halifax on the counter. And I was pretty good at it, because basically sell anything to anyone.
I used to, do you know, I really wanted that job before, not particularly Halifax per se, but like I always wanted to be like a bank cashier. I don't know why, but I just thought it was a cool job to have.
Very little job. It was like working in Bexhill-on-Sea. I think the pay was like £9,000 a year or something.
Really?
And like 2000, when would that be? 2009?
That's what, wow, how old are you?
I was 20.
And that's still that was minimum wage, £9,000 a year.
It was fairly low, like it was, yeah.
Oof. Wow, okay.
Slightly better now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, £9,000 a year wouldn't even pay for most things anymore.
And your rent at that time is like, I had to own my own flat for like 400 quid.
Okay, well, yeah, it's like £4,000 now, probably.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, slightly more expensive living in Fulham now.
yeah, now you've moved to talk.
Yeah.
Everything's true.
But, so I was working in the bank, and then started to go to the gym and lose the weight and started to regain some confidence, and then developed bulimia. But I couldn't tell anyone, because it's just not something that I ever saw anyone talk about, let alone like a working class bloke who played rugby, you know what I mean? So that was suffering in silence there for about 8 years. Met this girl, she was like proper free spirit. She was like doing the travel the world. So sold everything I could, got together about 1,500 quid. I sold my car. That was all that was worth. Everything it was 1,500 quid. So we flew one way to Argentina and then traveled around South America for about a year. Taught myself Spanish. Set up a hostel business in Ecuador, which was pretty cool. And I thought I can do more than I've ever. So I imposed my limits. So people were like, "If you're an electrician, that's enough. Or if you work at a bank, that's enough." Where I was for the first time in my life at that time, I was like, I can do more than I've been told I can do. So I was like, I want to go to university. Started that like the worst uni in the UK. It was the only one that would have me. Worked my butt off in first year, got like high first, transfer talks with Brooks, found out I was dyslexic and dyspraxic at that time as well, started to get a little bit of help. Graduated with a first class degree and got onto the grad scheme at Deloitte. And I was like the oldest grad there, but worked there, started to do like digital consulting, big transformation. And then I started to share my story like one bit at a time, and then setting up like wellbeing functions and teams slowly, like side of desk. Additionally, eventually did some work internally, set up it for the whole business, then working with clients like with Dyson and stuff. Knew I wanted to do it full time, and it was only gonna be a part-time role at Deloitte. And then in addition to all the client work, so I left to go and lead at Sainsbury's, which is amazing. This is when I started writing and speaking and sharing it off. Every single day, if I post and make enough noise and share this experience and read and write, and then people won't be able to annoy you eventually. Got made redundant. I thought maybe this isn't it. Then I worked as a future of work lead at a big fintech called Financial, which was amazing. We did loads of really cool stuff, like first company to do unlimited paid leave. We did like global approach to hybrid, like pay equity around the world, like amazing things. And that was awesome. Got made redundant again. And I thought, and then the sort of the role at Deloitte to go back and set up that wellbeing consultancy, the thing I wanted to do many years previous, came back, set that up, created the methodology, the thinking, help people unpick the myth that wellbeing is like yoga and cake and stuff like that. As good as that is, that's an outside of work thing. How can we create work that's good for people, that anyone, you, me, all people listening can do exactly what they need? It's not an organization's responsibility to improve happiness. That's where we're getting it wrong. That's where we start with wellness stuff. But it is their responsibility not to worsen it. And we flip that switch, we treat it seriously, we measure it with discipline and data, then we can see, oh, we invest in this bit or do this, it results in this. And we treat it with the respect that it hasn't been treated with. So we developed that school of thought, the future of wellbeing business, all of that methodology, wrote reports, thought leadership, like to work with some amazing clients. Yeah, and then that just spiraled up, and then they did the TED Talk, got the book deal. So yeah, it was the chance of it happening are just infinitesimally small.
You say that, but I'm really noticing a few things. So I'm like, it's crazy. And I think that, I want to give some sort of hope to people out there listening, because I think if they're listening going, oh yeah, there's no chance of it happening, it was just luck, which a lot of people do think that. But I think that there's elements of luck, and there's luck comes because you're planting the seeds. So it's like, yeah, you did have a lot of crap happen to you. And for you, I think the only reason you were able to do it is because of mindset. Like that could have happened to so many more people, and less stuff has happened to other people. They're just giving up.
Well, I'm conscious of my privilege as well, right? And of being fortunate to be a white dude. Equally, like I was born in a pretty rough, like society.
Yeah.
Economic background. So you have that. So everyone has their own.
You do, but like I think that, you had several things which were tough, and you just kind of brushed over a couple of them. For example,
yeah, I know. I tell it quickly because I don't want to take the whole hour.
I know, but I really want to actually, if you don't mind me, asking a little bit more about the bulimia, because I know you speak up about this stuff, and I know you're very open. But I would love to, because like you said, you're like a straight white male who plays rugby, right? And like people love putting labels on stuff, right? So we put that label on you, and then you're like, oh, well, I've got an eating disorder. Like that's hard to admit, right? That's hard to. I don't actually think I know any men with.
But you do.
But
I don't know, they haven't spoken.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So thank you for correcting me there, because I don't think I know any men who would have admitted to having an eating disorder.
That's almost that's almost the counterbalance, isn't it? Like, because it's more difficult for others, then we create a place where their voice is heard, and others now it's difficult to speak up.
Yeah. And I think,
and it's not the environment that we're trying to create, is it?
No. And I think I've had a lot of men on the podcast who've been talking about men's health and, men's mental health in particular. And it's so important. And I've been so lucky to have amazing men who are willing to open up about that, because it's funny because you're saying about your privilege as, a white male or whatever. But I also do feel a little bit sorry for a lot of men out there at the moment with a lot of things, because a lot of men want to be more open, want to be different, want to be just embrace who they really are, but they feel that they can't because they get accused of being woke or being like, this. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, why are these as labels? So I love it when men do come forward and, are really open about it. But I'd love to talk a little bit about that, Bulimia, because like, I think that, with social media now, it's probably even worse, right? It'd probably be, I don't know what it was like, but
it was bodybuilding articles for me. So when I worked in the bank, all of the bodybuilding.com, I was reading all these diets and how to do this exercise. Then I took it to the extreme. And then I couldn't eat anything that wasn't chicken and broccoli or porridge and water. And if it wasn't those two things, I'd immediately go to the toilet. Even once, if I had like 2 minutes, I was like, anything. There's like these like strict rules, and then you can't tell, just absolute shame. But then only like when I was unable to speak because I was so calorie deficient, I nearly was days away from hospital. But then the ladies in the bank knew something was going on, and then they made me call my mum, and they were like, "You need to go." I think they knew.
Yeah.
But then people don't want to say anything because it's really difficult.
Yeah.
I know. If someone's like low mood, it's almost an easier conversation. Someone's doing something to themselves physically, like it's almost like another level of it. So then I told mum, and then she made me share a slice of cake with her, and we sat together for hours. And that was how the journey to recovery began. But it's on and off, like ups and downs and stuff. But yeah, impossible to tell people openly. Only when I started telling my story, working at doing the odd event, I've spoken to over like 110,000 people live now. So like I'm more of a back to back.
Yeah.
So I talk about it like really blasé. So excuse me, like how flippantly I talk about stuff, but it isn't.
It's almost a coping mechanism in a way, right? You don't want to
back around and talk about it. Like, let's say it was a Ryan over there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's the old you in a way.
It doesn't feel like.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some therapy to do to embrace that person with a little bit more love as well, instead of pretending they don't exist. But we'll deal with that one later. But yeah, just that was where I ended up, and just telling people was almost impossible. It was only through I was like, okay, started talking about depression, and okay, that's that bit of the story you embrace. And then you start to talk about the anxiety when I was so anxious I couldn't leave my flat, but I feeling like I was going to piss myself. And then the next bit, then you talk about the suicide. The last bit I spoke about was the bulimia, because I don't know, it just felt like the bit that had the most shame. But then when you start telling people, I've never had any, apart from like stuff on social media, people give you, that's just...
Yeah, you expect that.
Yeah, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
But in person, no one has ever said, well, that's stupid. Not what. Others, more women than men, have said, thank you so much for sharing. You've helped me like embrace this part of who I was, and now sharing that story. And that's kind of what Jack's all about. It's about sharing stories, because we've all got our own. We've got some version of what I've just been through. No one comes through life unscathed. And it's about, if you think, well, that bald, scary dude covered in tattoos over there can do it, then I definitely can. And that's almost the intent. Everything I do is to create work where people don't end up in that position. At least if they do end up in that position, they don't have to stay quiet. Because when you don't tell anyone, it just feels exacerbated. You feel like the biggest freak in the world. Like, am I just so odd? And you just realise that we're all going through it in some way, shape or form.
But that's the thing, like you said, you were terrified to tell people, but in a way, you wanted people to know, probably, you said that your mum sat you down, had a piece of cake, and you got through it, luckily you had people who love you and supported you. But what advice would you give for other people who are going through it? Like, this is obviously related to what you do at work, because you're talking about work well-being. You said that ladies in your bank saw something was wrong and were there for you. And it must be so hard for them as well, because it's really awkward. Like you said, like, how do you approach this? What would you recommend? Like, if you're thinking back to who you were then, what did you really need at that moment? And how could colleagues and everything, like people, help people like that?
It's so tough, because you can take the horse to well-being water, but you can't make them drink. Like, people only speak up when they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just not ready to have that conversation. But what you can do is just create the environment, always just checking in. Like, Movember have a really nice framework. It's super simple. It's ALEC. So ask, listen, encourage, check in. And it's not about deepening. It's not about like go on, tell me, like, or 5 points in or something like people normally do. It's about you ask and you ask again, and often that second one melts people a little bit, because the common British response is, you're all right, yeah, good,
good, thanks, yeah,
all right,
yeah, I'm good,
yeah.
nah.
I said, "Like, how are you really?
Yeah, exactly.
You sure?"
Yeah. Then it gets a bit.
When they're ready, they'll tell you. Otherwise, they will tell you when they're ready.
Yeah.
And if you just keep turning up like that, being that support and a good person in their life, they'll know when they're ready.
It's so tough because, like you said, everyone's going through something, like everyone is, but they don't, like you said, I think there's a lot of shame around it. And I think it's so much better now and more people talking about well-being, but...
Definitely better. It's still hard.
I know, it will always be hard, but like you said, you've spoken out, like you just said all those different things on stage. It's said hundreds of thousands of people. Like, there's a lot of talk about what's right to share online, right? Like you said, social media, as we just said, you're going to get negativity.
You get a fair bit of grief.
I mean, yeah, it's not easy. And I talk about, oh, you do this. And I think I did a podcast episode last week, actually. So I do another solo version of podcast, which is called Sniffing Out the Bullshit. And every so often I do like a personal interlude. And the last one I did was dealing with negativity. And I almost did the podcast episode as a way of processing it myself.
You're braver than me. I want to take a more punchy tone. I want to start calling out some of the bullshit a bit more. But I get that. I do that tone. And for some reason, people really get in on you. If
they do
it. And I'm trying to work out how to challenge the bullshit from a third party perspective, almost using data and insight, because it's not my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm almost like, this is bollocks and this is why. And people either get angry about it or angry about me saying it, even if it's just a share or something else. I'm trying to develop the space and develop my voice. I've done a lot in this area, and I feel quite confident. I still don't feel confident on that.
Okay, so obviously, but this is what I do. This is what I've been through, and you've seen the stick I get. Yeah. But so first of all, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Why do you want to have a punch your tone? Why do you want to call out the bullshit? Like, what is driving? Because
we spent $5.6 trillion on wellness, and we've never been more unhappy, sad, or angry. Mm-hmm. It's a racket. Like, it's the shamans, charlatans, and snake oil salesmen. I've got to get it right for the TED Talk in a couple of weeks, but the alliteration. But like, everyone is ready to sell you something because it worked for them. They often come into it with good heart, but they're selling you something, and it's been productized. However, like, well-being and wellness are two different things. I'm trying to unpick that for people, because well-being is one subjective satisfaction in their life. You don't have to be happy to have a sense of well-being. Happiness is a temporary emotion, like anger and sadness. You can have a sense of eudaimonia, which is a life filled with purpose. It's working towards something. It's often the people who work the hardest, they're not always smiling or happy, that have the greatest meaning and feeling in life. He who has a why can deal with any how. That's what we should be focusing on. And then everyone should work out what their purpose is. It could be a series of little goals or something massive like Russ Cook run across Africa. Instead, we look to wellness, which is the pursuit of optimized health physically and mentally. And that's where we have courses of people selling stuff and apps. And while they can help you get to a sense of well-being, it's not the only way. And it's being proffered that we have to spend loads, we have to invest in these things, we have to do this course, or look or feel or be a certain way. It pisses me off because it takes people away from where they need to be. They need to spend some time on themselves. This might come out before or after the TED Talk. Regardless, these are the 3 ingredients to well-being we're going to go into. So you've got your vision, you need to understand who you are, you need to create the time inside and outside of work, and just focus on the little things. It's that simple. And we can unpick all of the nonsense. There's so many people profiting off of other people's sadness. And I want to just help people understand who the fuck they are and then prioritize that stuff. And that's why.
See, all I hear there is passion and the absolute strive to want to do good and help other people. And you're doing it for the right reasons. And that's what I have to keep telling myself. The reason why I call out the bullshit
so hard.
Is not...
It's common. You see it.
It is hard, but if you know deep down inside, that's why I always say people go down to the values and your why, like start with why, but you have to know your why. Like, you're doing it for the right reasons. I don't call it the bullshit because I'm looking to start a fight. That's the last thing I wanted. I don't have the energy for that. I'm looking to do it.
Too much good stuff going on to deal with.
Exactly. And it's also just like, I get so annoyed, like you said, all the charlatans out there, I get so annoyed people just ripping people off. There's so much bullshit in entrepreneurship.
Oh, now, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
Madness.
It's ridiculous. And I'm so sick of it that I just want to call that out. And I don't personally like attack people. Like you said, I use, like I said, data and insights. Data doesn't lie, humans do. That's what you've got to realize. So it's like, if you back stuff up with data and research, then you can actually show people how things really are. And so I will keep calling out the bullshit, because all the people who are out there scamming and acting all this sort of stuff, they're ruining people's lives for so many reasons. Like, you know, like we talk about all the people who even just show off on social media. What that does is create imposter syndrome in other people. It makes them lose confidence. It makes them like you run into a spiral of depression, and actually they get burnout because they're trying to strive for something that doesn't even exist. Like all this stuff is actually really dangerous, but you don't see it. And like that connects to
the thief of joy, isn't it?
Exactly. That's a great quote that I love as well. And I just think that it's so difficult. And I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, you've got to stick to it. I think it is tough, but if you really believe in it, and I always believe that if you're getting stick, you're on the right tracks.
Oh yeah, if you got a none, then you're too benign.
Yeah, and exactly, because I think people who just agree with everything you're saying, also I'm not really into that, like, because I think that, you know, it's very easy to agree with people. Actually, if you're ruffling a few feathers and you're sparking a debate, a healthy debate, then that's a great place to be. The moment people are disrespectful, that's on them. That's how I have to realise it. If they can't have, like, and happily disagree, I popped up on your things and I've had a different opinion and I've always disagreed with certain stuff and a different viewpoint.
You do take it respectfully.
But I do it in a respectful way because I still massively respect all the things you're doing. And I'm just like, but what about this? And I just add a little different viewpoint because I like to always think about things in a different way and add a different perspective. But, you know, we have a healthy debate in the comments and we both end up mutually respect, and like there's usually some common ground anyway, and that's normal.
Alistair Campbell's like #1 podcast, The Rest Is Politics, he's on with Rory, who was a Conservative MP. Alistair Campbell was very much Labour, and they say they respectfully disagree, and they end up in a position where I don't have to agree with you.
Yeah,
I respect you.
Yeah,
don't necessarily respect and agree with your opinion, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And they just come to that.
And that's what it's about. And that's what I think it is about, because...
Well, it's a really nice way of looking at it.
It is, really. And if in fact a Labour and a Tory can sit on a podcast together and actually have this discussion about such contrasting viewpoints, and politics is very, very polarising, like, then we can all do it.
Talking of him, he's on the Jack platform. Jack being, essentially, we're giving people the answers to the right information live, like TikTok-style content, all validated by experts and clinicians. Over 100 topics. He was one of the first. So he's like a vociferous debater. Do you know what I mean? Like a strong bloke, super switched on, experienced extreme depression, had psychosis, almost in the position where he killed himself. And like, you think people like that, everyone is going through some version of it, no matter how much they got it together on the outside. 1 in 4 people in the UK are experiencing like negative mental health at the moment. And it's 1 in 3 for young people. So if it's not you right now and it's someone you love. So it affects absolutely everyone. And the more people like that, like you, hopefully myself, sharing this stuff, people will think, all right, that's cool. But then there's an issue on social media where you have to be the most burnt out, extremely depressed. I had the worst version of bulimia. No, like, it's okay. Like, everyone's experience is their own. You don't have to, it's called, I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was. There's a bifurcation of the language. So essentially you either like a holistic princess who's going on these certain things, or you are like so screwed up that you got to like take time off for burnout. There's so much range in between, and we have to be one or the other. And we've lost any form of nuance in the conversation. Like, if you're tired, you're like, well, I'm burnt out. You ain't a flipping competition. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's cool. Like, and that's your experience. And we'll just give you the time you need to get back to being your best self.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is literally exactly where I am at the moment in terms of what message I want to try and deliver in terms of entrepreneurship. Because exactly that, like, I feel like in entrepreneurship, people are either very anti-hustle culture, and they're like, you must...
They valorize the opposite side of it, but you've got to work hard equally. Like,
exactly.
You want to get it done. You work until 8, 9. Let's be real.
Yeah, and actually, some days you might have to do really, really late nights. Some weekends you will, but then you'll take some time off. You need a balance. And then there's the other people who are just like, if you don't give up all your friends and family, then are you really taking your business seriously enough?
Is it Grant Cardone who said if you're not earning millions, you're like being disrespectful to your family?
Yeah, well, he's a guy like 10x your income. He's like he's like, "Wah." He's like, if you're not working hard, and I like, there's elements of what he says that I like.
These two opinions are the ones that get the most noise and engagement. You almost,
extreme.
You can't have a nuanced opinion anymore.
Well, I'm now going to go straight down the middle, because that's what I believe in.
But that's also reality.
Yeah, because I'm like, there's times you need to be both, and that's what it is. At the end of the day, my no bullshit is being a realist. I'm a realist. Like, people go, "Oh, you're being negative." No, I'm being a realist. Like,
I'm doing a TED talk called "The Secret to Wellbeing" at TEDx Shorters in 2.5 weeks. And I'm practicing most evenings until 8, 9. I've got a sense of why. He who has a why can do it anyhow. The stronger your why, the less likelihood you will to reach burnout. Right? You don't mind doing the work. So I choose to read on the subject for leisure.
Yeah.
So when you actually get aligned with what it is you want to do on the entrepreneurship, then you can work harder and longer because it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So it's when people are working in monotonous, mundane jobs, yes, then you push them harder, then they're going to experience that position. But I think for entrepreneurs, if you're so clear on why that is, then you can work longer and you're going to have to. But then this is the thing, again, going back to the TED Talk and going to be delivered, you're going to love it. So like, well-being is no small thing, but it's made up of small things. So it's not about big courses. It's not about having hours. It's not about going to live in retreats in Tulum in Mexico, despite what people will have you believe, of course, because they're selling something. It's about focus on the little things. And if you improve by 1% every day for a year, you're 3,778% better at the end of the year with compound interest. It's not about having hours in a day. It's about having 5 minutes after each meeting. That's what it is. And we need to flip that switch and understand that. And then we can work longer. And that's cool because if you put in more graft from the person next to you and you're just as aligned and you've got just as much experience and skill, then you are going to do better. Let's be real. But like, it's about not doing it for the sake of it or the mundane work. It's about unpicking what work actually is. If you're doing productive work after hours, good for you.
Yeah. And that's why that quote comes on, which says, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And a lot of people hate that quote.
Cheesy, but it's true. And they probably hate it because they're not doing what they love. Like, it's easy to hate people that are doing something you think you should be doing.
But also, you can still have a bad day doing something you love. Like, I love what I do, and you can tell how passionate I am. I absolutely love it. And I work so many hours. Again, don't necessarily feel like I have to work those hours.
You're not advocating for others to do the same.
No, and I choose to do it. Like, it's not like, and then I'll go and have a break.
The key thing there is that agency and the
yeah, exactly. And for me, I actually love working. I worked this weekend because I just ran a retreat, and I switched off.
I'm saying how good it was.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I also made sure I was present for that. So I didn't there was an odd thing I did, but I wanted to be present with everyone. So I took 5 days away from my normal day-to-day work. So I spent the weekend doing a bit of work. But at the same time, I also relaxed and I watched movies and I cleaned my house and I did a bunch of stuff. I went to the park with my dog.
This is what I mean. So that's what it is. And when you focus on those little things, I know the things that I need to do to be my best self. This morning I didn't. I laid in. So I was in Ireland for the weekend. I had too many pints of Guinness at the reunion. Like, I needed my sleep. Like, this 80-20. You get a good 80% of the time, relax 20. But like, every morning I get up, train in the morning, and I know then if the day goes a bit long, if I got some book stuff or a talk I need to practice for, like, that goes on top of my job. So you'll talk about the entrepreneur stuff. I've got like my side hustle.
Yeah.
And that, I can't do that during the day. But I know if I focus on a few things that I need, then I can do that work. Then that's it.
Yeah, and you also mentioned you get up in the morning and do that. I'm not a morning person, no matter how much I try. And all these entrepreneurs
This is why you've got to understand yourself.
Exactly.
And that's where you can't listen to any advice that I give
the
necessarily.
morning routine,
Yeah,
and everyone loves it.
You see Mark Wahlberg's one recently?
No, go on.
You get something. So James Hewitt posting, quality bloke to follow, by the way, Dr. James Hewitt. He's like real data led. I like what he does. And he posted Mark Wahlberg's like morning routine. He gets up at 2:30. But then everyone's going mental. So
not even in bed at
hustle
half that
culture
time.
and stuff. Yeah, but then flip side, he goes to bed at 7:30.
Oh yeah, well that's just never gonna happen with me. I'm still at my desk.
So that's what I mean. So it isn't like that crazy, and everyone gets angry about it. I'm like, no. Like,
It's still on a different time zone.
that's what I'm saying.
He's basically on a UK time zone.
Exactly.
That's what it is. If you think about it, that's basically a lot of people UK
He's
time
not doing
zone.
any extra work. He does train twice, and he focuses on some other stuff. Like, most people don't have the time to train once or for a long time. But like, it's just really interesting. What works for him, I go.
No, and I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock and doing an ice bath, which I'm not 5 a.m. doing an ice bath. Although, like, I've got into ice baths now, thanks to, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love the feeling after it, not the actual thing. Obviously, I'm not that crazy, but like, I love it. But I'm still not getting up every morning at 5 a.m. to do that. I will do it every so often and have a day when I'm doing that. But I love my sleep and I love working in the night. Like, I have a nice evening and I'll spend it. But actually, sometimes like my partner will go to bed and I'll do some work and people say that's unhealthy. But actually, I love that because in the morning, I'm not stressed when I'm waking up.
Oh, no,
and exactly that. And I think that everyone's different. I think people all have to realize that there is no formula for success. There is no ideal morning routine. There is for individuals, but not for everyone. Otherwise, everyone would be the same and we're not the same. Otherwise, that'd be just crazy. So obviously so Jack, first of all, is just ask a question, right? So just ask a question, JAAQ, which I'm going to shove the link in the show notes because it's a fantastic platform. And like you said, you have people from all over the world sharing their stories and everything. What I'd love to explore, because you've also, again, written a book, 52 Weeks of Wellbeing, bestseller, incredible. You said you're in the middle of doing another one as well?
Yeah, having conversations about the second book. Nice. So we're putting the proposals together at the moment.
So you have been mainly focused on employee wellbeing with what you did at Deloitte, and now you do at Jack, which is could just ask a question, isn't it? So for. And I feel like it's been great because like there have been companies who have been awful at this, right? Who have been like the normal thing, I think back in the day was to work your staff to the bones and like
squeeze everything out.
Exactly. Like, well, I'm paying you, so you should be doing whatever. So I think it's great that that's been so much awareness. Where I think the struggle has been, personally, from obviously my network and mainly small business owners, is that small business owners feel so much pressure now to do all this stuff for employees, and then they end up forgetting about themselves. Now, I spent a lot of time and effort working on trying to be the best I could for my employees, putting all these policies in, doing everything I can. Like, you know, we paid for like therapy, we had all the different things like included, and it was great. But what I feel like small business owners do and other entrepreneurs is they don't look after their own well-being. And I think that we're worse than most people because we are, and like, I feel like you're a little bit different because you're technically an employee, but you're very entrepreneurial. Like you said, you've got your side hustles, you're doing other things. I think like, you know, you're very entrepreneurial by nature. Like, you know that we don't look after because if we're super passionate about something as well, we're like,
yeah, you're willing to go deeper and it's yours. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And as a result, then you do end up in burnout. You end up, you know, having all these problems.
Is it?
What can we do to help more entrepreneurs focus on well-being? Why is there, I know that obviously numbers wise there's more employees out there than other entrepreneurs, but why
the same principles apply? Yeah,
they do. But why is there so few resources, so few people helping entrepreneurs in particular? And what can we do? What can we do as entrepreneurs to really, really focus on improving our well-being?
There's two sides to that. So you've got like what you're doing as an entrepreneur for your people. She said about doing stuff, but I think that's where we need to like unpick it. You don't need to do these big surveys or anything. A small group, you can speak to them, but it's not about no. It's often about less. Some of the best well-being procedures and stuff could be, we're going to work our ass off here. It's going to be graft. We got a podcast tomorrow with Ryan. He's really demanding guests. We all get ready, stuff like that. So we might do some work on Sunday. All right, cool. But then, if we wrapped everything up Friday midday, put your tools down and go away. They're the sorts of things that have the biggest impact, rather than, whilst therapy is an amazing tool, is it a workplace solution? Is it something we should be expected to provide?
It became that in our
agency. It definitely feels that way, and obviously with the way the state of public health, it's really difficult because someone is struggling. Their chances are they're not going to get that support when they need it. So it's hard. But then the biggest impact for the vast majority of people, the NICE framework, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, is you got 1% of people that are severe, 4% that are struggling quite a lot, and then essentially everyone else above it. It's like an inverted pyramid. So we're focusing the effort on the people, the 1%, while neglecting the 99. So when we actually give a little bit of space, these are the barriers. This is how we work here. We give, we take. This is how we support flexibility, remote location, etc., etc. That's going to have a greater impact on the business than providing that therapy to the bottom people, as much as it could change their lives. But if you're talking about your impact for the business, it's about changing the thinking and what we actually offer. Because that's a wellness solution, rather than enabling people to focus on their well-being. Two different.
Yeah, that's why I think that gets murky, because I think that wellness and well-being are so interchanged in terms of like on social media, like they're exactly the same thing.
I wrote about it today, yes.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that. I need to go back and write it. But I feel like there is, and I think that's part of the problem, like you're saying about calling out all the bullshit. How do we know what to listen to?
Thing is, that wellness solution can change people's lives. And they can. And then those interventions, like 1% of people that are struggling could stop something terrible from happening. So they have tangible impact. But then as a business, where you want to focus on where the 99% of the impact is. So it's how do we support people when they're really struggling, put in place those guardrails? But then how can we focus on the majority of the people who don't need that care? That's where we look at psychoeducation, materials like Jack, etc., 100+ topics. I'm autistic, I've got ADHD. I'm trying to learn about those things now because it's new to me. So that could be the biggest impact to me. You got your different journey and what's going on. So you're going to need different things, right? So that's that flip there. But for entrepreneurs to look after themselves, as we said, it's not about holistic retreats, all these other things. It's about you taking the time to write a business plan. Do you know what the fuck you need to be your best self? You put everything into this, right? You're grafting, you're getting it done, you're putting that work in. There's no way you haven't turned over any stone, your competitor analysis, your TP&L, all of it, right? But have you taken the time to work out what you need? Well, you get that sense of purpose. And like, without well-being, there is no performance in the long term. You can have short term, you can dig in, you can graft, you can do 80-hour weeks, sure, maybe a few weeks in a row, but you will get to a point where you are drawing on reserves that you have to start to put back into. So you have to take that time to think, what is it that gives me energy? In a really simple way, is like Mark Mulligan showed me this before, the best self bank account. You deposit this in your withdrawals. What gives me energy? What detracts from my energy? And then we need to focus into the things that are giving us energy. It's that simple. When you think about the definition of well-being being your higher purpose, your satisfaction, that goes much broader than just health. That's your sleep. So neglected for most people. No one in the world can operate on less than 6 hours, despite what you see Musk saying, etc. It is a myth. It infects cognitive performance massively. We wear trackers, most of us. You got one on now, right? A lot of people are now suffering from orthosomnia. So addicted with the data that it's actually affecting cognitive performance.
Wow.
So this will be in the TED Talk as well. So we have to think then, what things are serving us? Is that supporting you? Is that detracting? Because for me, I used to obsess on getting 10,000 steps. And if I'll have to, every single day for the year, because that was my rule. And I'm now learning that this is perhaps the autism. I can set myself up to fail sometimes by being too rigid. So this is a learning for me.
Yeah.
But if I was at a wedding, I would have to leave and go and do the steps. My nan's funeral, I would still have to go and do 10,000 steps. I was sick, I would still go and do it. I'd walk around my room. That's when it's unhealthy.
When it's debilitating and actually affects your
But then the intent is good, but the outcome is bad.
Yeah.
So how can you then work out what those things are that you need for you? Say it'd be spending some time with the dog in the park with your dog, spend a bit of time with your fella, even if you don't go to bed at the same time, because relationships are just important. Invest in a lot into your business, making sure you put a couple of pounds aside so you don't have that worry that you're gonna, if it all goes Pete Tong, that you're gonna be in trouble. And it's about thinking all these different things and then just incorporating tiny elements of that into each day. And it isn't about these huge things. It isn't about just doing it once again. It's every single day. And while an app and a solution and a webinar and a TED Talk, as good as mine is going to be, can help, it's you that makes that change. And if we try and defer and outsource it to someone else and pay for expensive health clubs like a lot of entrepreneurs do, we're going to find that we're not doing those things. The most important thing is to find in that well-being journey or that element of something you enjoy, because you're going to have to do it every single day. And some others you won't get it right. I didn't go to the gym this morning, I want to go this evening. 80-20, right? Relax if you have a donut now and again, if you've had a long day or you didn't move enough. Don't chastise yourself, because no one's perfect.
I had a cupcake yesterday.
Oh, yeah, you're golden. And what did you have on it?
Nota's Biscoff one.
Oh, so
it was
good.
banging.
Yeah. But yeah, but at the end of the day, that's the balance that we're on about. So it's about treating that almost yourself with the discipline that you would your business for a short term. Work out what those things are. Go through that exercise. Say, where do I want to be?
Yeah.
Personally, business separate. Where am I now? And how do I get there? Squiggly careers and this line. Your well-being is no different. There's no 12-week course. Yeah. Because life is more varied than that. So you got to work out what it is, plan that time in. And while it might just be a 15-minute walk 3 times a day, that's enough movement for people to stay healthy, right? Yeah. You can put them in at certain times a day. Business will be louder, and that will have to move. As long as you move it to another time, that's cool. So you have to be non-negotiable with your well-being, but flexibly non-negotiable. You need to work. That's the attitude you need to develop and to focus on those things. So I know that if I've got whole morning of client bits, in the afternoon, I'm going to say, I've got a meeting that goes in over that time. I can't just say, no, I can't do that. I'll just move it around. So it's about just making sure you have those things. You tracking how it supports, but not too much.
Yeah.
And then working out what that is to you. And you can take inspiration from others and take those diet plans and look on socials and see the people doing amazing things, but customize it to you, because that will be different in your life. We just have to take that time to work it out. And I guarantee that most people haven't.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think a lot of people don't even know what they actually want, because I think they're
being led.
They are. And I think when you said to me, about, you know, the things I did for my staff and stuff. And, you know, right now I think we're fully flexible, fully remote. It's great. Like everyone works on their own time.
Wow.
And
remote results only workplace.
Yeah, so we've been, to be fair, we've been like that since before COVID.
I mean, tell me about it.
And, you know, we did all this stuff. And like, even when like things like people needed to go for a doctor's appointment, I wouldn't make them take a time off and do that. Like, we'd always just be like, I'll make up the time everywhere else. I've always been at that. I believe in give and take. Like, you know, if I'm that flexible, I'd like for them to be flexible. Like I said, if occasionally they need to work late one day, then work late one day. And we used to like do drinks on a Thursday night, and they used to start at 12 p.m. on a Friday, because I used to let them have their hangover in the morning. We used to do that way before COVID. Now, yeah, we're results oriented. But I think like I did things like I got them a Peloton and put it in the office, and we basically made up a little gym inside the meeting room area, because people wanted that. But at the end of the day, I don't think they actually cared about their well-being. They thought it was a cool thing to have going. We've got a gym in the office, we've got Peloton, but they deep down inside, they didn't actually want to get fit. And I think that's what it is. Like if you've got to genuinely want it, and you want to have to change your behaviors, otherwise you don't adapt to things. I think that's important. And like same with diets are, you know, people who just kind of do the yo-yo diets because they just want to get to that point, but they don't actually want to change their lifestyle. I think it's so much easier if you just become a healthier person. If you like fundamentally want to change who you are and become that healthier person, like that, James Clear, Atomic Habits, right? He always says like
he's bang on the money.
Yeah, he's great. Like instead of
the reason why that's still like
the number one best, exactly, because he says like, you know, instead of being I don't smoke anymore, so I'm not a smoker. It's reframing that
the identity, which then drives the behaviour.
I'm a healthy person, not like I'm trying to be healthy.
To build
a habit.
Or to unlearn one as well. So if you think about it, you think about it in the positive and the negative, it works both ways.
And I think that's so good. And I think that, and again, it reminds it, again, same with entrepreneurship. It's like you said, all those things earlier when you said, oh, you've got the business plan, you've got the strategy. And I'm thinking a lot of people don't. Because a lot of people just jump straight in. So they've got this idea and they want to do it. But fundamentally, do you...
In the short term.
Exactly the same thing. That's like a diet. That's like a cheat sheet, all that sort of stuff. Do you want to just get some quick results because you're addicted to that dopamine? Or do you actually want to be good at business? And do you want to have a successful business?
That's why it needs to be so strong. People always talk to me about visualization and myself, but then it's so true fundamentally to everything. And you don't have to call it that. It can just be the best version of yourself. You've got to be so clear on what it is. Whether you make a vision board or whatever else, that's cool. I've got one on my desktop. I like looking at it. It makes me think about certain things. But that needs to be so clear. Because if your why is not stronger than the digital distraction, leaning into Instagram or going to get something or just a quick dopamine hits, then you will continue to do that. There's a reason why Gen Z spent 137 days a year on their phone. Mm. That's just the recent stuff. That is absolutely astronomical, over a third of their life. And that's why, because that pull is stronger than anything that you're working towards. If you find something you enjoy, then you'll happily opt out for it. Like the gym time is the happiest time of the day for me. Like my mind's always running. I can't just sit still. Sitting on a sunbed is my idea of hell. Like, screw that. Like I want to be moving. Like we went on a holiday, me and my girlfriend in Tenerife, first one together. And she's like reading on the sunbed, and I was like doing aqua aerobics with the old ladies, and I loved it. And I thought, this is like, it's just understanding myself. And like, if I go for a walk, I know that I feel at peace. If I'm in the gym, I can do that. Otherwise, if I'm sitting still, I'm like, well, I might as well do some work, because I love what I do. But because you're an entrepreneur and you love what you do, you can always do the extra hour, but sometimes the extra hour is not doing you any good. And we feel that we have to do it because it's your baby, right? But you have to unpick being busy and being productive. They're two different things, and we conflated the two completely. We spend 57% of our time on emails or on calls.
That's disgusting. 57%?
That's us, yeah.
Ooh.
So that's 57% of the time talking about the work that we're doing.
Not actually doing it.
Exactly. So we need to unpick those things. And if that's what we focus on for the workplace, so here is a rule of thumb. Every single meeting is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You have to have an agenda and objectives for every single one. Each person's role needs to be clear. There's certain organizations that don't have any meetings, no standing meetings between. Shopify have a meeting cost calculator. So when you put it in a diary, you can see this is going to cost you $8,000.
It does. People don't realize that.
So if we focus on those things, then we'll find we create space. And as an entrepreneur, well, you think sending a few more emails or a few cold calls at like 9:30 doing your help, or is that actually saying to you, well, this is what we can expect from this organization working at this time? I would rather work with someone who's refreshed, energized, stuff like that. There's a really interesting case study of the legal profession saying that I think it was 43% of all tasks in the legal profession can be automated by Gen AI. So you're going to get two types of firms soon. You're going to get those that are simply take away a lot of the workforce, focus on that optimization, continue to get 80 hours out of people, or the organization that then takes a 43% 43% saving of that work week, and then has people that are feeling refreshed, that can have a life outside of work, who will then turn up and be able to use the tech to focus on the human creativity around the side and then provide the best results to their clients. Which law firm do you want to work with?
Yeah.
So that's what we need to consider.
Yeah.
So we need to think about how we can do this over the long term. And while we can burn the midnight oil consistently, and you will have to, let's be real, it's about understanding that we have to focus on those things that can continue to allow us to turn up. And your well-being is different to mine. So you got to take that time to work out what that is.
Yeah, I think like it's about making sure we're always doing the jobs that we are the best at as well. Because I think like that's it. Like it's a 57% of emails and meetings. I definitely think mine's less than that. I'm going to check my time audit because I log all my time because I actually will because I'm really anal with my time. I do.
I think that'd be interesting to start sharing with people.
Yeah, do it because I think like I've really worked on this because I believe that you should be spending the time doing what you're great at. Like, and it's really difficult. Again, being the balance sort of thing, not one end or the other. Like so like anti-hustle versus like really hustle. I also think that versus delegate everything, which is what the ideal people want to do if you have all the money in the world, but to do everything yourself. And, there's got to be a medium. And I think the reality is, as an entrepreneur, especially bootstrapping, you're in the middle somewhere. So I believe I'd love to do only the things I'm great at. At the same time, I still have to do a lot of these admin. Yeah. But I do think I've got a bit better at it. So I'd love to share that data with you. But on the note of data, because you were saying, going back to what you said earlier, you'd love to call out some of the bullshit and you'd love to back it with data. I want to talk about some of that bullshit because I do believe that the wellbeing industry has a lot of it, and it's got a lot of stigma as well because, like I said, I just ran a retreat, and my co-organizer, Natalie, was the first episode actually, Elevate. She's my co-organizer. I told her when I first met her, and she was like, "I run a retreat company," and I was like, "Not another one." Like, that's what I said to her. But I critically talking to her, I realised she was very different. And I think there's that stigma to the airy, fairy, arty, woo stuff. And there's a lot of people doing it and they don't know anything about wellbeing. I want to know from you, because you've got a lot of experience now in this industry, as an entrepreneur or anyone's online, like seeing this stuff, like I said, the wellbeing versus wellness and just the advice out there that we're talking about. What are some of the biggest pieces of bullshit advice you've seen in the wellbeing industry that we need to know about and protect ourselves about, and what's actually real?
So I normally work with large organizations. So what I would say is get the data right, understand what's driving the cause of negative well-being, map out your attrition, show how increased work hours drive attrition and stuff like that. That's not going to be on the cards for a small organization, nor is it required, because you got anecdotal evidence essentially of everything that's going on within the business. You already know what the crack is, but we said it already. It's about just not trying to put every solution in the sun for people or make assumptions that we know what people need or do every single awareness day under the sun, because while people want to learn about certain things, then we're detracting from the message of the work. An organization, Coinbase, the CEO, is really brave, basically said we're not doing awareness days here. None of them. And they said, what are we doing about Black Lives Matter? He said, nothing. He said, this is a workplace. We're going to focus on those things. And if those things you need to be part of your work, you have to go elsewhere. And I think that is a brave position to take. And while he himself, I'm sure, had an opinion on it, and the importance of it, he said, as a workplace, this is what we focus on. And I think while that is an edge case, I think what we can learn from that is that this is actually how we work here. We're not going to focus on those other things outside of it. We'll support you or we'll give you a little bit of money to focus on those things, but that's what you do outside of work. And here, this is what you can expect from this workplace. This is how we turn up. This is how we are. And if you want anything else from that, then you can go elsewhere. I think it's about getting really, really clear, because now there's an expectation you have to offer all these things. But I think if someone said to me, we work flexibly here, or a results only workplace, we're not going to offer you any bits on the side, but that's it. I think that's almost like an enlightened future of work for an entrepreneur.
Well, that's great to hear, because that's the direction we're trying to go. Because we had all these fluffy, great perks on our website, and we realised...
It's that driving you towards your business, and it is...
Well, it's also attracted the wrong people, because all they cared about were those.
These causes are so important, and I care about all of them, and I see the value of it, but then if we're spending half our week talking about this stuff, then the business will not continue to operate as it should. So it's about unpicking it. And when we treat well-being like a science, creating an environment where people can focus on what they need instead of assuming that we know, that's the biggest challenge. We're trying to fix people, me As I like to go and train in the morning, I like to do a nice 5 years. That's like me telling everyone in the business, that's what I have to do. So it's making those assumptions. Whereas you're not going to have these huge data sets. You know, this is how we work as an organization, create the space for people, the time, the flexibility, the autonomy, the sense of trust, belonging, inclusion, so important. That's where we focus instead of trying to provide a load of solutions to people. We say, if you want them, they're over here perhaps, or you sign up to an organization that has benefits on the side. I think that's what we need to move to, because right now we're trying to offer all this stuff to make ourselves attractive.
Yeah.
And while it might help get someone in the door, is that the person you want in the business? Yeah. And I think it's just clear expectations. And then as an organization, you can then get everyone to develop a manual of me. Like, so this is how I work. This is what I need. These are my dependents. I've got a kid with learning disabilities, for instance. I've got to pick them up at 4, or I've got a kid and I'm breastfeeding, or any of the above. That's well-being. I literally just unpick well-being and wellness, focus on well-being as an entrepreneur. And then as you scale, you can offer these perks. And Oxford had a piece of research recently, so the most of them don't actually work at increased subjective well-being. The research was good, but problematic because it takes a homogenous blob over a macro group of people and just says financial well-being doesn't work. That isn't the case. When I was in debt, that would have helped me massively. That would have worsened my subjective well-being in the short term as I tightened my belt, but then ultimately put me in a position where I'm able to start saving money. So those like binary metrics or measures of what works and what doesn't are wrong. So instead, let's focus on creating the environment that says you're struggling, then we'll give you that support over there or that support over there. So it's about flipping that switch from well-being to wellness, I think. And if we're just clear on that as an organization, get it abundantly clear to people what they can expect, that's a great place to start, because happiness is the difference in expectation and reality. So if you come in expecting this and we're focused on all these things, all these campaigns, then it's not leaving you much time to get the work done. I would rather people said, these are the boundaries, you can go and do your thing outside of it.
I think that's beautiful. I think like it is that. I think like said about happiness are very different. I think a lot of people feel the pressure to make their employees happy, and you can't do that. Like that happiness depends on...
Not worse than the happiness, but creating an environment where they can get their work done, they can get a life meaning, whether that be at the work or outside of it.
And what would you recommend for those who are employees who, you know, maybe feeling unhappy at work at the moment and they feel like the workplace could do more? What would you how would you reckon they should approach that?
Well, they've got to understand what their version of well-being looks like and communicate their needs. Because unless we communicate what we're after, the organisation is not going to help. And then often people just get angry about stuff or the way things are. But like, well, how can we help you to get to that place where you're performing better?
And I think my fear as a small business owner is that, like you said, every person's needs are very different. How are you supposed to accommodate for every single person? Like, people like different sort of environments and everything like that. And I think obviously it becomes easier if you are flexibly working. But say if you have an office space or, you know, again, not everyone has the luxury to be able to do that. Like, how do you accommodate for everyone? If you try to do that, then it's almost a massive
This is the switch, isn't it? So we're not accommodating for everyone. We create the space and environment where they can turn up as they are. When we focus on that and creating the space in between meetings and calls, and these are boundaries and fair pay, that's where we need to get to. It's not about improving happiness, and it's about not worsening it. And we focus on simply creating the space and the environment instead of putting stuff in, then we're in a better space. So it's literally just flipping that switch instead of saying, oh, this person's struggling, or maybe you've got 2 people in your team, we've got ADHD, what we need to do a course for everyone. That's great, and that works. And I think that's something that can be used, but the focus needs to be on creating the environment instead. Whereas we're looking just on this, without changing any of the underlying factors or drivers which are causing the stress in the first place. So plastering over the issues with more. And most of the time, the issue is that people don't have the space or time to do their work. And to fix that, we give them a course to talk about it. Yeah. Giving them even less time to do their work. So I think it's just the simplification of what this looks like in the workplace, and just create work that doesn't fuck people up.
I think that's a great idea. I think like it's been such a valuable like podcast, because I think there's so many things to think about that maybe we haven't been thinking about in the right way. Do you have any parting words that you feel like you have to get out in terms of well-being versus wellness, and what we should be focusing on, mainly for entrepreneurs, but as anyone, and how we can improve well-being and wellness?
Take that time to work out what you need to prioritize the hell out of it, because you are your priority, and you can give more for others and you can live a life of service. But if you don't have a healthiest attitude, be selfish about your health, you won't be able to continue to do that in the long run. Focus on those little things, plan it in, communicate it to the world, share with your people in your business, and they'll start to do the same. then you'll have a workplace where people are turning up, they're happy, healthy, and productive. And you're probably saving some money, not putting a load of gear in that people are not using, and the Peloton bike in the corner.
I know that's stuck in my spare room now.
That's why I feel.
Can do, please.
But like these things have their place and they are super helpful, but they are not the first point.
Yeah.
So flip that switch. Look at how we can create space instead of putting more in. Difficult sell to say to people this month, focus on well-being is nothing. It's actually less.
Oh, that's going to be that is going to be hard. I want to have people take it, but so much food for thought. And I think it's a really great solution because actually it's more cost effective doing it that way. Like you don't have to have all these things and it's accessible for everyone. And I just think as an entrepreneur, we all need to really be a little bit selfish sometimes, because without us being in a good physical state, then all our employees aren't going to be in a good state either.
And so remember the secret to well-being, right? I don't know when you release this for after the TED Talk, but it's vision, quality time, and then healthy decisions, and just focus on those little things every day. Don't worry about getting it perfect, because you're not going to. Remember, you got to come back to that because you want to be that person over there. But keep them clear in your mind and create the space because you are your priority.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everything today, Ryan. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. Okay.